VTP advertisements. Each switch in the VTP domain sends periodic global configuration advertisements from each trunk port to a reserved multicast address. Neighboring switches receive these advertisements and update their VTP and VLAN configurations as necessary. Because trunk ports send and receive VTP advertisements, you must ensure that at least one trunk port is configured on the switch stack and that this trunk port is connected to the trunk port of another switch. Otherwise, the switch cannot receive any VTP advertisements. VTP advertisements distribute this global domain information: VTP domain name, VTP configuration revision number, update identity and update timestamp, MD5 digest VLAN configuration, including maximum transmission unit, MTU, size for each VLAN, frame format. VTP advertisements distribute this VLAN information for each configured VLAN, VLAN IDs, including ISL and IEEE 802.1Q, VLAN name, VLAN type, VLAN state, additional VLAN configuration information specific to the VLAN type. In Vtp Version 3, VTP advertisements also include the primary server ID, an instance number, and a start index. VTP Version 2. If you use VTP in your network, you must decide which version of VTP to use. By default, VTP operates in version 1. VTP Version 2 supports these features that are not supported in version 1. Unrecognized type length value, TLV, support. A VTP server or client propagates configuration changes to its other trunks. Even for TLVs it is not able to parse. The unrecognized TLV is saved in NVRAM when the switch is operating in VTP server mode, version-dependent transparent mode. In VTP version 1, a VTP transparent switch inspects VTP messages for the domain name and version and forwards a message only if the version and domain name match. Although VTP version 2 supports only one domain, a VTP version 2 transparent switch forwards a message only when the domain name matches. Consistency checks. In VTP version 2, VLAN consistency checks, such as VLAN names and values, are performed only when you enter new information through the CLI or SNMP. Consistency checks are not performed when new information is obtained from a VTP message or when information is read from NVRAM. If the MD5 digest on a received VTP message is correct, its information is accepted. VTP Version 3. VTP Version 3 supports these features that are not supported in version 1 or version 2. Enhanced Authentication. You can configure the authentication as hidden or secret. When hidden, the secret key from the password string is saved in the VLAN database file, but it does not appear in plain text in the configuration. Instead, the key associated with the password is saved in hexadecimal format in the running configuration. You must re-enter the password if you enter a takeover command in the domain. When you enter the secret keyword, you can directly configure the password secret key. Support for extended range VLAN, VLANs 1006 to 4094, database propagation. VTP versions 1 and 2 propagate only VLANs 1 to 1005. If extended VLANs are configured, you cannot convert from VTP version 3 to version 1 or 2. Note: VTP pruning still applies only to VLANs 1 to 1005, and VLANs 1002 to 1005 are still reserved and cannot be modified. VTP Version 3. VTP Version 3 supports these features that are not supported in version 1 or version 2. Enhanced Authentication. You can configure the authentication as hidden or secret. When hidden, the secret key from the password string is saved in the VLAN database file, but it does not appear in plain text in the configuration. Instead, the key associated with the password is saved in hexadecimal format in the running configuration. You must re-enter the password if you enter a takeover command in the domain. When you enter the secret keyword, you can directly configure the password secret key. Support for extended range VLAN, VLANs 1006 to 4094. Database propagation. VTP versions 1 and 2 propagate only VLANs 1 to 1005. If extended VLANs are configured, You cannot convert from VTP version 3 to version 1 or 2. Note: VTP pruning still applies only to VLANs 1 to 1005, and VLANs 1002 to 1005 are still reserved and cannot be modified. Private VLAN support. VTP version. Follow these guidelines when deciding which VTP version to implement. All switches in a VTP domain must have the same domain name, but they do not need to run the same VTP version. A VTP version 2 capable switch can operate in the same VTP domain as a switch running VTP version 1 if version 2 is disabled on the version 2 capable switch. Version 2 is disabled by default. If a switch running VTP version 1, but capable of running VTP version 2, receives VTP version 3 advertisements, it automatically moves to VTP version 2. If a switch running VTP version 3 is connected to a switch running VTP version 1, the VTP version 1 switch moves to VTP version 2, and the VTP version 3 switch sends scaled down versions of the VTP packet so that the VTP version 2 switch can update its database. A switch running VTP version 3 cannot move to version 1 or 2 if it has extended VLANs. Do not enable VTP version 2 on a switch unless all of the switches in the same VTP domain are version 2 capable. When you enable version 2 on a switch, all of the version 2 capable switches in the domain enable version 2. If there is a version 1 only switch, it does not exchange VTP information with switches that have version 2 enabled. Cisco recommends placing VTP version 1 and 2 switches at the edge of the network because they do not forward VTP version 3 advertisements. VTP version 1 and version 2 do not propagate configuration information for extended range VLANs, VLANs 1006 to 4094. You must configure these VLANs manually on each device. VTP version 3 supports extended range VLANs and support for extended range VLAN database propagation. When a VTP version 3 device trunk port receives messages from a VTP version 2 device, it sends a scaled-down version of the VLAN database on that particular trunk in VTP version 2 format. A VTP version 3 device does not send VTP version 2 formatted packets on a trunk unless it first receives VTP version 2 packets on that trunk port. When a VTP version 3 device detects a VTP version 2 device on a trunk port, it continues to send VTP version 3 packets, in addition to VTP version 2 packets, to allow both kinds of neighbors to coexist on the same trunk. A VTP version 3 device does not accept configuration information from a VTP version 2 or version 1 device. Two VTP version 3 regions can only communicate in transparent mode over a VTP version 1 or version 2 region. Devices that are only VTP version 1 capable cannot interoperate with VTP version 3 devices. For VTP version 1 and version 2, if extended range VLANs are configured on the switch stack, you cannot change VTP mode to client or server. You receive an error message, and the configuration is not allowed. VTP version 1 and version 2 do not propagate configuration information for extended range VLANs, VLANs 1006 to 4094. You must manually configure these VLANs on each device. Note: for VTP version 1 and 2, before you create extended range VLANs, VLAN 1006 to 4094, you must set VTP mode to transparent by using the VTP mode transparent global configuration command. Save this configuration to the startup configuration so that the switch starts in VTP transparent mode. Otherwise, you lose the extended range VLAN configuration if the switch resets and boots up in VTP server mode, the default. If you configure the switch for VTP client mode, the switch does not create the VLAN database file, VLAN.dat. If the switch is then powered off, it resets the VTP configuration to the default. To keep the VTP configuration with VTP client mode after the switch restarts, you must first configure the VTP domain name before the VTP mode. Caution: if all switches are operating in VTP client mode, do not configure a VTP domain name. If you do, it is impossible to make changes to the VLAN configuration of that domain. Therefore, make sure you configure at least one switch as a VTP server. Enabling the VTP version. VTP Version 2 and Version 3 are disabled by default. When you enable VTP Version 2 on a switch, every VTP Version 2 capable switch in the VTP domain enables Version 2. To enable VTP Version 3, you must manually configure it on each switch. With VTP versions 1 and 2, you can configure the version only on switches in VTP server or transparent mode. If a switch is running VTP version 3, you can change to version 2 when the switch is in client mode if no extended VLANs exist, no private VLANs exist, and no hidden password was configured. Caution: VTP version 1 and VTP version 2 are not interoperable on switches in the same VTP domain. Do not enable VTP version 2 unless every switch in the VTP domain supports version 2. In VTP version 3, both the primary and secondary servers can exist on an instance in the domain. Enables privileged exec mode. Enters the global configuration mode. Enables the VTP version on the switch. The default is VTP version 1. Returns to privileged exec mode. Verifies that the configured VTP version is enabled.